Hello everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome to the Wannabe Podcast episode 4. Before we begin with the usual stuff, I just had a quick question for you guys. Basically, I don't know why it took me so long, but I just realized that we're in the middle of October, aka Spooktober as some people call it. And for this month, I know a lot of channels do spooky or like horror related content near the end of the month. And I thought it would be really fun to do something similar. So I guess my question to you guys is, what would you guys like to see me implement into the channel, hopefully before the month is due? I mean, would you guys like to see me review some horror content, maybe read some creepypastas and rate them? I mean, that could be fun. I don't know. The point is, I have some ideas, but I want to leave it up to you guys. So yeah, if you have a suggestion, please leave it in the comment section below. And while I can't guarantee that I'll be able to get to it, I mean, I realize that I'm asking this very late with there only being 2 weeks of the month to go. I still will try my hardest to read through everybody's comments and see what I can put together, you know? I just think it'd be really fun, and I would definitely love all of your guys' input. So yeah, with that being said, I guess I'll dive into my week. And as always, I'm going to start with anime. The only thing is that because a lot of the anime is stuff that I, watched and talked about last week, I think it'll kind of defeat the purpose if I just go in depth every week, and then tell you guys to watch it. That feels kind of, like I said, I feel like that kind of defeats the purpose. Not only that, but I think it'll be kind of boring if I just describe every anime every week. So really quick, I'm just going to talk about the anime I watched, give a quick little description of maybe something that happened, and whether or not I recommend it. So the first anime I want to talk about is Skullface Bookseller Honda-san. If anyone remembers, that's the anime that I said was about the skeleton who works at a manga store, and it was like a really good, quirky look at what it's like to be a retail worker. And yeah, I feel that everything I said last week applies this week. I think it continues to be a really fun show. I think it's really funny. I feel like I could really relate to all the retail stuff they're going through. In this episode, it was all about inventory and restocking, and it gave me some flashbacks to when I worked at a retail store, and I continue to recommend it. So there you go. Moving on to Zombieland Saga. I think Zombieland Saga continues to be a surprisingly really good show. I mean, there was an episode that I don't remember if I discussed it or not, but there's an episode that had this sick rap battle I didn't expect. The third episode had this funny concert they performed in the middle of the street. And yeah, it continues to be a very interesting look at the idol industry, and the characters are just really fun. I think the manager in particular is probably my favorite character. He's really over the top. The way he emotes and says stuff in English is really hilarious, and I continue to recommend the show. When it comes to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5, I think it is super stylish. I think the stand battles are really creative, and I love seeing them animated. I think David Productions is doing an awesome job. I'll admit I'm kind of disappointed with the ending song. I think everybody wanted it to be Gangster's Paradise, and instead we got this slow R&B song that's super sexual, and you gotta check it out. It basically talks about being horny and wanting to freak people. It fits though. That's the funny part. It really does fit. So I don't know. You have to check out what I mean for yourself. But all that aside, I think that so far the episodes I've seen are really good. I think the production is really top notch, and I continue to recommend the show. I know it's a little bit of a hard sell because, as I said last week, if you don't really know about the franchise, it's kind of difficult to just dive in. But I think if you've been considering watching JoJo, now is a really good time to catch up so that you can enjoy this part that's being released. And yeah, as I said, I keep recommending JoJo. Moving on, that time I was reincarnated as a slime. I think it continues to be really fun. I think it makes a really good fantasy adventure. And I think the way that the world keeps opening up every episode and introducing different races and showing off the little slime guy's powers, I think it's really neat. I think seeing the little slime guy do his thing and interact with, in this episode, for instance, he interacts with a pack of dire wolves and he interacts with a little village of goblins. I think the interactions are really fun. I think the little slime guy, I don't know, I think it's just such a unique main character, and I continue to recommend the show. I think it is a really cool, lighthearted, fantasy adventure story. Based on the opening, I don't know if it's going to be kind of like Final Fantasy-esque, where he goes to all like the different like species / races, and he gains party members and stuff. But I don't know. So far, I'm really enjoying it, and I do definitely recommend it. Moving on, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai continues to be a really good emotional story, and the heartfelt relationship between the two main characters is great. I mean, this anime in 3 episodes basically does what it takes them to do like in 12 to 24 episodes. Like, it has an established relationship. It does a lot of stuff with the story, like the story does not drag on. Like I said, in these 3 episodes, I think that what they cover is really good, and I'm definitely excited to see where else this story goes. I think out of all the anime I've mentioned, this is probably my favorite of the season so far, and I recommend it. The mystery's good, the emotion's good, the relationship is very heartfelt, and it's one that you definitely root for, so I would say to watch it. Likewise, although there's not a lot to say about it, there's a new anime that I did watch called Boarding School Juliet, and as I said, not too much to say about it. I think it's a little self-explanatory. But basically, it's Romeo and Juliet as a high school romance anime. And yeah, I mean, it's fun and it's a good adaptation so far. There's nothing particularly special about it, but I think it's worth a watch. Basically, like I said, it's a world where there's Romeo and there's Juliet, and they go to a school, and they're part of 2 different sides. One's called, I think it's like the White Dogs and the Black Cats. I think that's what they're called. I actually probably should have looked it up, but it doesn't matter. The point is, as usual, there's 2 different sides that don't like each other. Romeo and Juliet have a thing for each other, and yeah, the 2 episodes that I watched were interesting, and so far I recommend it. When it comes to an anime that I watched that I don't recommend, that would have to be FLCL Alternative. Without getting into spoilers, I'm just going to say that I was quite disappointed with the season. I had been trying to stay positive and appreciate it for what it was and not really compare it to the original FLCL, but even then, I just found myself being very disappointed. I think the ending was done really bad, in my opinion. I think that it was just very vague, very confusing. I think that there's a lot of like loose ends that weren't properly resolved. I think that there wasn't any character growth, which is disappointing because, I mean, I don't know, as much as people like to talk crap about FLCL Progressive, at least there we see the emo girl kind of open up a little bit, And here, I just feel like there wasn't really any character progression at all for the main character. And not only that, but like Haruko wasn't even her own character either. I feel like she was more of like a plot device. Like basically she would show up every week and she would cause a problem so that like a different monster would appear. And that was basically it. And she didn't really have any like story to her. She wasn't even her own character, like I said. So I thought that was disappointing. And not only that, but like the robot fights weren't that great. The weird FLCL moments, I don't know, I feel like they weren't what I was expecting, you know what I mean? And I don't know, once again, even though a lot of people talk crap about Progressive, at least Progressive had like some pretty cool robot fights. And I think the ending song for Progressive is great, but the ending song for Alternative is kind of, I don't know, it doesn't make me think FLCL. Like it's a nice, maybe like slice of life ending song. Like, it's not a bad song, but I don't know. I just wasn't impressed. I don't recommend this season at all. Honestly, I would say just skip it. Maybe just stick to the original FLCL. However, if you're interested, if you're curious, I would say go ahead and check it out. I mean, maybe you'll like it. If you do, more power to you. But personally, I was disappointed. And I guess the least said about that, the better, Moving on, I played 2 games this week that I wanted to talk about. The first game that I played is The Missing, which, as I said last week, it's the game by Swery. It's a like atmospheric puzzle platformer. Basically, it has this really strange mechanics where you dismember yourself and light yourself on fire to solve puzzles. And yeah, last week I said I had played like 3 hours, and I played like another 3 hours this week and completed the game. I mean, there's some stuff I could go back for to like, if I want to be like a completionist, but I think it takes around like 6 hours to beat the whole game, and I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people said that they thought the controls were kind of janky. A lot of people said that they didn't really enjoy the puzzles. They thought they weren't interesting. I disagree. I think that the controls were fine. I never had any problems with them. And I think when it comes to the puzzles, with the exception of like maybe one puzzle, I thought the puzzles were great. I thought they were interesting. I thought they were fun to try to solve. And not only that, but the biggest thing this game has going for it is definitely the story. Like, when you first look at it, you wouldn't think so. But I think this game has a great story, and I think the places it go are great. I mean, the story is very dark. It handles some very dark material. The story definitely has some moments that make you feel like really uncomfortable. And I don't know. While a lot of people would probably look at this and they would see that as a bad thing, I see it as a positive, because to me, that just means that it had something important it wanted to say, and it wasn't afraid to say it. And I don't know, I think the story, I don't want to spoil it, but it's something that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate. And I think that like the little twists they have here and there, I think they were really well done. And I think the fact that Swery even bothered to like handle this topic is impressive. So I don't know what else to say. I really enjoyed this game. I think it is great. I think Swery did a great job. I think he hit another home run with this game, and I definitely recommend it. I know that for some people, you know, $30 is going to be expensive, especially for a game that's only like 6 hours. But, you know, if that's the case, I would say at least write this down somewhere or keep the game in mind. That way, you know, in the future, if it's on sale, at least grab it then, because I definitely think it's worth playing. Once again, that game is called The Missing, also known as The Missing, J.J. Macfield and the Island of Memories. And like I said, I recommend it. I thought it was a good time. Likewise, the other game that I played this week was The World Ends With You, the Switch version. I think the Switch version's called like The World Ends With You Final Remix or something like that. And I really enjoyed my time with the game. I think that it's what I remember and more, if that makes sense. I think this port is definitely really good. I think the music is awesome. I think the game mechanics are great. I think the story is really good. And although I haven't got into a lot of the like new stuff, because I know this game is supposed to have like new stuff, mostly as like post-game content, I'm really excited to get there. And even without like the new stuff, I'm enjoying myself. I will admit the controls do take some getting used to. I played the game in handheld mode, which means that the controls are very like touchscreen based. And it did take some getting used to, because the last time I really played a game that relies that much on touchscreen controls was back in the DS era. You know what I mean? However, after a while I got used to them. I think the controls are fine. I did not play the TV mode, which I know, you know, for that, I think there's like motion controls and it uses the Joy-Cons like gyroscopic functions and all that. I didn't try that out, but I do have a friend who did, and I know he said that he thought it was fine. Same thing, he said it took a little bit of getting used to, but he thought it worked pretty good. So yeah, I definitely recommend the game. I think the game is great. I think that if you played the DS version, you'll have a blast. And I think that if you have not played the game, but you've been considering, you know, getting into it, I think now is a great time to do so. I think it's worth it. So, I mean, it's a full game plus new content. So I think it's worth it and I recommend it. Finally, the last game I want to talk about is one that I unfortunately did not have a chance to play, but I've heard it's really good, and that is Starlink Battle for Atlas. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a game made by Ubisoft that basically it's very similar to Star Fox, where you're like in little ships and you're shooting stuff as you fly through space. And in fact, what makes the Switch version so special is that Star Fox is basically like a guest character. And for me, that's the reason I bought the Switch version. I think it's probably the superior version because playing as Fox sounds awesome. Although I didn't play the game, I've heard some really good things from people who have played it. And as someone who bought the Switch version and received the, you know, box in the mail, just looking right now, looking over to the side and seeing my little like R-Wing figure and seeing like the little Fox add-on thing, they're really well made and they're really nice. And I'm definitely excited to play the game. I mean, as I put on Twitter when I received the box, I, took a picture right away and I was like talking about how I was super excited to get to try the game out. Unfortunately, I was not able to get to it, stuff here and there and work and personal life stuff prevented me from playing the game this week. However, I've heard some really good stuff about it and I don't know. Hopefully by next week, I'll actually have a chance to try it out, so I have more to say about it. With that being said, that should be it for my week. So how about we get into the news? And the first news story I want to talk about is that, I'm not happy to talk about it. I'm actually really disappointed. I think it's sad how there's been so much controversy within the video game industry lately. But basically the story that I wanted to start off with first is that there was this interview with the co-founder of Rockstar Games. His name's Dan Houser. And basically, like I said, he's the co-founder of Rockstar Games. They were interviewing him about Red Dead Redemption 2, because that game comes out, honestly, I forget if it's like this week or like next week, but that game comes out super soon. And so they were interviewing him about it. And during the interview, he basically said this thing about 100-hour work weeks, and it kind of sounded like he was bragging about it. And so the story really took off because a lot of people were upset about that. A lot of people were saying that that's not really something to brag about, and that you shouldn't be proud of basically overworking your employees. And there was this whole kerfuffle basically. And I get it, because number one, making employees work 100-hour work weeks is insane. When you average that out, that's like 14 hours a day, which is crazy. And not only that, but usually when there's all this overtime, people aren't getting paid the way they're supposed to. And I don't know, there's just all this abuse of power in the game industry is a huge thing right now, especially with what just happened with Telltale. And so the point is, it was a pretty big story earlier this week. Since then, Dan Houser has tried to, clarify what he meant by his statement. He says that it was taken out of context and that basically what he meant was not that the whole company has been working 100-hour work weeks. He said that it's just him and his team of 3 people that I think do the narrative and all the dialogue or something like that. Basically he was saying no, I meant it was me and my small team. We're the ones who have been working the 100-hour work weeks. And even then, we don't mean we've been doing it for years or months. It was only for 3 weeks or whatever. And, he was trying to kind of put out the fire that he set. And I don't know. Well, on the one hand, maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe, he's talking about his own personal experience and there's no reason to, get so up in arms about it. At the same time, I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions, but I feel that some of the language he used as he's trying to explain himself sounds kind of suspicious. He uses, I'm trying to look through the story, but basically he says, not everyone's expected to work 100-hour work weeks. We did it because we're very passionate about the project and because we care. And that right there is the language that I think is a little bit worrying, because even though I've never worked in game development, just as my personal experience from retail, I can tell you that there's situations where a manager will tell you that, you're not expected to stay, but then if you don't stay, they kind of use it against you. Basically what I mean by that is that back when I used to work in retail, I had this manager that would try to ask me to stay extra hours sometimes. And if there was occasions where I would tell him that I couldn't because, I had schoolwork or I had plans, he would just kind of nod his head and he would be like, oh, okay, I see how it is. It's no big deal. Except the way that he would say it, I could tell was going to be a big deal. And, sure enough, next work schedule, instead of giving me, good hours, he would give me 9 hours for the whole week. And when I would ask him why, he would be like, oh, well, you said that you're too busy to work. And so I don't want to put that workload on you. And I don't know, just the way he would say it would be complete bullshit. And you could tell that he was trying to punish me for saying no to him, which is ridiculous. You know what I mean? Just because I said I was busy on one occasion doesn't mean don't give me hours. That doesn't mean I don't want to work, that I don't want to make money. But of course, he would use it against me. And that's what I'm saying, that if Rockstar Games runs similarly, which I honestly have a feeling that they do, then that sucks for the employees. Because even though they tell them like, oh no, you don't have to work if you don't want to, you don't have to do overtime, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the kind of situation where like, if someone says they can't, then they get put on a list that basically says, oh, this individual doesn't care about the project and they don't want overtime. They don't like making money. You know what I mean? Like, I just have a feeling that even though they try to sell themselves as this company that doesn't overwork its employees, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And they just, try to be like they try to like tiptoe around it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I am jumping to conclusions, but I'm just telling you what I know from personal experience. And I'm just telling you what I know also based on the fact that they've been called out for overworking their employees before. So I don't know. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe he's not. Regardless, if you guys are interested, I have both the original story and then the follow-up story where Dan Houser is trying to clarify his original statement. I have those in the description below, so you guys can read those stories if you're interested, Moving on to something a little more positive. Dream Daddy Dadrector's Cut is coming to the PS4. Basically, what this is that, I don't know if anyone's played it before, but Dream Daddy is this game that was made by the Game Grumps. Game Grumps are these, famous Let's Players on YouTube. And basically, I guess they wanted to make their own game. And so they made this dating sim called Dream Daddy. And basically, Dream Daddy is all about making your own dad, and then your mission is to romance other dads. And I mean, I don't know, it's pretty funny, honestly. It isn't as smutty as you think. You think it's gonna have like a lot of like smut in it, but it's not. It's honestly very heartfelt and it's very down to earth and stuff. And it's funny though, like it has a lot of like funny dialogue. It has some funny mechanics. I know that there's a part where you meet another dad in a park, and then you and him basically have like a daughter Pokemon battle, which is like hilarious. And yeah, basically, like I said, it's a dating sim. You're a dad trying to romance other dads. And yeah, it originally came out for Steam. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before that. But basically, it was just announced that it's going to get a port to the PS4 on October 30th. And not only that, but it's going to be called Dream Daddy Dadrector's Cut. And basically what that means is that it's going to have some extra content. And so, yeah, I mean, if that sounds interesting to any of you, I would say check it out. I've played the game before, and it's definitely interesting. It's fun. So like I said, if anyone's interested, keep an eye out for that, I guess. Something else that I guess we should keep an eye out for is that the Nintendo 64 Classic might be on its way. Basically, the story I'm linking talks about how even though it hasn't been officially announced, there is this rumor that it might have been leaked. Basically, this guy on Twitter, who I think it says goes by the name of Nacho, he basically said that an unnamed source gave him some info on the Nintendo 64 Classic. And yeah, I mean, not really much to say. At the moment, it's more of like a rumor, but I mean, it would make sense. I said it before when I covered the PS1 Classics announcement, but I mean, it would make sense. The SNES Classic and the NES Classic made a ton of money. I see no reason that Nintendo would not make an N64 Classic. And yeah, I mean, I'm not very excited for it. As I said, same thing with the PS1 Classic. I feel like these are very hard to get your hands on. I feel like you either have to be there refreshing the page within the first hour to buy it, or you better be willing to give some scalper like 5 times the original amount. So, I mean, I'm not too excited for it. Honestly, I'm just going to admit it. Out of all the Nintendo like retro systems, I honestly think Nintendo 64 is my least favorite. I think the Super Nintendo is probably my favorite. I just think there are much more interesting games for the Super Nintendo. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But either way, if you're excited for it, keep an eye out. I mean, hopefully it really does get announced soon. And yeah, I mean, that's basically all there is to say about that. Moving on, I want to talk about this story because I thought it was kind of funny, but apparently one of like the hardest achievements for the Stanley Parable is finally unlockable. Basically, the achievement is this, like the requirements are for you to not touch the Stanley Parable for 5 years. And I mean, I think that's insane. But yeah, I mean, apparently that was put into the game, where if you don't play the Stanley Parable for 5 whole years, the achievement will unlock. And I think that's insane. Unfortunately, I can't even try this out because I think the last time I played the game was like a year or 2 ago. So, I still have a ways to go. But yeah, I was reading the comments, and apparently there's a lot of people who said that they're almost eligible for it, that they even put like a reminder in their phone. So I don't know. I mean, that'll be interesting. I mean, I guess it's legit. I don't think the game would lie, but it's just such a crazy achievement. You know what I mean? Like, why would you put that in your game? I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought that was really funny. Moving on. There's a story about how Marvel's Iron Fist got canceled. Honestly, I mean, I'm not surprised. I tried to watch the first season and I got bored like halfway through. I thought it wasn't very good. I heard that Iron Fist's part in the Defenders crossover wasn't very well received. And while I do hear that season 2 was like a big improvement and that people liked it more, I think it was just one of those situations where maybe it was too little too late. And I mean, I don't know. It sucks for the guy. I mean, it must suck to know that you were the weakest out of the 4 Marvel Netflix shows. That must be disappointing. And it must be disappointing for fans who enjoyed the show. I mean, I know that even though I didn't watch it, I was really hoping for a Luke Cage and Iron Fist team up. I think in the comics, their team up is like really fun. I think they have like a really fun dynamic. And I was really looking forward to hopefully in the future, them doing like a Heroes for Hire sort of thing. So the fact that Iron Fist is canceled, I mean, I don't know. The chances of that team up don't seem good anymore. But I mean, then again, I don't know. In the interview, the statement regarding the cancellation, I mean, it did leave it a little open-ended. It said that Iron Fist will live on. And I mean, I don't know if that's just supposed to be a pun, or I don't know if that's supposed to be because, maybe they plan to, I don't know, include him in more Luke Cage stuff, or like I said, maybe in the future they do hope to revive the series or maybe make a spin-off on Disney's new streaming platform. Maybe they'll make a team up between Luke Cage and Iron Fist. I mean, I don't know what Disney's plans are for it, but for now it got canceled, and all I can say is for the guy who was, playing Iron Fist, I mean, it sucks, dude. I hope you get a different gig. And for anyone who liked the show, I mean, sorry, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. So, moving on. While Iron Fist was not very well received, this story talks about something that was very well received, and that is Halloween. Apparently, the new Halloween, which I think actually hits a lot of theaters today, it was certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And what makes this story especially special is not only the fact that it's doing really good ratings-wise, but apparently this is the first time since the original film back in 1978 that any of the movies in the franchise has been certified fresh. So that kind of puts things into perspective. I mean, there's been a bunch of sequels and reboots, and apparently all of them have been considered not that great. So the fact that this movie, so many years later, is getting a lot of good attention, I mean, that's great. You know what I mean? Like, I saw the trailer. I thought it seemed really interesting. I was actually, like, it piqued my interest. And hearing this just further piques my interest, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I just find it so interesting because you look at something like Predator and something like Alien that did so bad, even though they had like the original like people that made the first one involved, and they just did so bad, and they were just so negatively received. And then you have something like this that you think's gonna do terrible, and it's doing really good. And I don't know, I mean, that kind of gives you hope, It kind of gives you hope that not every franchise is doomed to fail, and that not every sequel has to be bad, you know what I mean? So that's cool. And like I said, it's been certified fresh, first time since 1978. That definitely gets me interested. I don't know if any of you are interested in watching this movie, but like I said, it does hit lots of theaters today, the 19th. And not only that, but I don't know if you guys know, just thought I'd throw that out there, But what's interesting too is that even though there's been a lot of sequels and like reboots in the Halloween franchise, apparently this movie is choosing to ignore all of them. And this movie is apparently a direct sequel to the first movie. So that's what I also find interesting. That even though, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis's character came out in like Halloween H2O or whatever, and I don't know, there was like a few movies where she like reprised her role. I think it's interesting how they're choosing to ignore all of that and just make this a direct sequel to the first one. So that's really interesting too. But I mean, the fact that apparently it's working out for them and people like the movie, hey, there you go. I mean, that's cool. Moving on. This one isn't necessarily a news story, but I still kind of want to touch upon it briefly. Disney's been on this trend of remaking a lot of their movies into live action remakes. And, you know, a few weeks ago, I talked about how they have plans for a Lilo and Stitch live action remake. And, you know, recently they did like the Beauty and the Beast remake, you know, all that stuff. And apparently the next movie on their list is Aladdin. And it actually should be coming out like May of next year. And yeah, so on October 11th, which would be what, like a little over a week ago, there was actually a live action teaser trailer for the Aladdin movie. And while it's a live action teaser trailer and it doesn't show too much, you know, doesn't really show much of the characters, doesn't really show any plot stuff. I don't know. I think it's worth a watch. Honestly, I thought it was interesting. I think the city of Agrabah looks pretty cool. I think the Cave of Wonders looked all right. I'll admit the guy who's playing Aladdin doesn't have me too convinced. I just feel like he doesn't fit it like the way I would imagine it. But I mean, I don't know. I'll hold my judgment. For all we know, maybe he does a good job. But yeah, for anyone who's interested, I'll have the link in the description below for the live action Aladdin live action trailer. I mean, live action teaser trailer. God, I'm having trouble talking. Sorry. But yes, if anyone's interested, it's about 1.5 minutes. And like I said, it doesn't show much, but it shows off some of the scenery. And I don't know, looks interesting so far. I would hope it's good. I mean, I don't want it to fail, but I mean, I guess we'll see. And the last story I want to talk about, Studio Trigger's Promare. There's this story about how it's going to be released in 2019, and it's actually going to be a movie. So I don't know how many of you know about this, but Studio Trigger, the, you know, animation studio who's famous for stuff like Gurren Lagann, Flip Flappers, Little Witch Academia, Kill la Kill, Space Patrol Luluko. I mean, they make all sorts of really cool, really hype anime. And basically they had announced that they were working on this project called Promare. And they showed an image for it that shows that the main character basically looks like Gurren Lagann's Kamina. He's this dude with like spiky blue hair, and I don't know, I mean, he just looks a lot like Kamina, like kind of suspiciously a lot like him. And basically, you know, they had said they had this new project, and everyone had assumed it was going to be a new anime, but according to this like little news story that just came out this week on my anime list, apparently it's going to be a movie, and it's going to hit theaters in Japan in 2019. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's not too much information about it. We don't really know what it's going to be about. We don't know when in 2019 it's going to come out. We don't know how long after it's in Japan it'll spread to everyone else. But yeah, I mean, if you love stuff by Studio Trigger, keep an eye out for that. I know I'm definitely excited. I love stuff by Studio Trigger. I think all of the anime that they've made, with the exception of maybe Kisniver and their involvement of Darling and the Franxx, I think I've loved basically every other anime that they've made. And so I'm excited. You know what I mean? So I don't know if anyone else is excited out there, but I thought I'd throw that out there so that, yeah, like I said, keep an eye out for that, I guess. And yeah, I guess with that, guys, that brings a wrap to the news for this week. I don't know if there was anything that you guys found interesting. Hopefully there was. As always, I try to, you know, vary my stories up and, you know, cover a lot of topics. So, hey, like I said, hopefully there was something you found interesting at least. And with that being said, it's time for the Content Creator Spotlight. Last week, I only covered one person, and although that was an accident, I kind of thought about it. And going forward, I think covering one content creator a week might be a good idea, actually. Number one, because that way I don't run out of content creators, because honestly, if I'm covering like more than one person a week, that's a lot of people I'm covering. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to like run out of people to talk about. But number two, I think that covering one content creator a week is also kind of nice, because it gives that person their separate spotlight. You know what I mean? Anyway, all that aside, I'm only going to talk about one content creator this week. That might change going forward, but for now, that's the plan. And the content creator I want to talk about this week is Mighty Nifty. Now, Mighty Nifty is this really cool guy that he's currently sitting at 403 subscribers. And Mighty Nifty, I don't know, he's just this really nice guy whose bread and butter is reviews and retrospectives on video games. And basically he covers indie games, he covers AAA games. You know, he's covered everything from Super Seducer to God of War. He talked about Detroit Become Human. He just covers a lot of gaming content. And I don't know, I really recommend him because I think his reviews are really good. I think they're very well put together. And I think his retrospectives are very informative. And unfortunately, it looks like his site might be down at the moment. But I know he also has his own website where he puts like content up. And his website is really good too. So I would keep an eye out for that. And I don't know, not only that, but although, like I said, reviews and retrospectives are kind of like his focus, he does do other stuff on his channel that I think is also equally really interesting. Like, he has a video where he sings the credit song from Doki Doki Literature Club, and I think he did a really good job. I think that's worth looking at. And probably my favorite video from his channel, at the time of recording this, it's about like a month old, but there's this YouTuber, I guess, called Jimbo Shreds, who was teaching people about how to use green screen. And I guess he had like this competition where he was asking people to green screen him into different like situations. And basically Mighty Nifty created this hilarious video where he basically has Jimbo Shreds in the worst situations and talking crap about himself. Like, it is hilarious. Like, I've watched this video a handful of times, and every time I watch it, I can't help but laugh because it's just so good. Like, the green screen is good, and the way that Mighty Nifty incorporated it is awesome. Like, basically he has, I don't want to spoil it. Never mind. I was going to talk about it. I'm not going to spoil it. All I'm going to say is that you guys should check it out, and I will link that video in the description with Mighty Nifty's channel. But yeah, Mighty Nifty is a cool guy. Like I said, a lot of gaming content. If you enjoy gaming reviews, retrospectives, and just stuff that has to do with gaming, like I said, he has his own website too where he, talks about stuff. I think you should check him out. And Mighty Nifty, if you're listening to this, keep up the good work, man. Definitely do not stop putting content up. I know that you said you're going to try to take it like a little easier. Maybe, there's going to be more of a gap between videos. And all I'm going to say is, if that's going to lead to you having like what you feel is better content, perfect. But please, hopefully this doesn't lead to you quitting your channel, because I think your channel is great and I would love to see you succeed somewhere, dude. I think you have some good stuff. And yeah, with that being said, if what I've said interests you guys, please look at his channel. Please check out that video I mentioned and, show him some love. And yeah, that's basically all there is to say about that. With that being said, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Hopefully, hopefully what I talked about was interesting. I know people say that they enjoy my stories and they enjoy the content creator spotlight. Hopefully the same can be said about this week. I'll admit I felt a little bit off. Work has kind of been kicking my ass a little bit. I'm gonna full disclosure, I've been really busy with work projects, and at the moment I'm actually a little hopped up on caffeine, so hopefully that wasn't too noticeable. But yeah, like I said, hopefully this episode was great. For everyone who watched it, I continue to really appreciate your support. And all the feedback that I've received on the podcast so far has been phenomenal. Like, when I started the podcast, I did not expect to get these number of views and likes and comments. So for everyone who watches the podcast, thank you so much. When it comes to my, everything else on my channel, I apologize for not doing a video this last Wednesday. I really meant to. And I know during the last episode, I had said I was going to try to do an anime video. What happened was that there was an anime I was going to talk about, but then I realized that I couldn't really talk about it because, I don't know, I like to not spoil anime, and I realized that I was kind of spoiling it, and that plus, like I said, all the work that's been keeping me busy, Basically, I didn't have time for a rewrite, and so I just kind of scrapped it. However, I promise that this week I will do a I will do an anime video for sure. It might not necessarily be like an anime review. I think it's going to be more of an anime list sort of thing, but all the same, please keep an eye out for that. Like I said, I will try my hardest to get that out on Wednesday. And not only that, but depending on your guys' suggestions for, like I said, like spooky October content, I'm going to see about getting started on that. So hopefully keep an eye out for that as well. And yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for watching the Wannabe podcast. I hope you guys tune in next week for episode 5. I mean, the fact that I'm already on episode 5 it's kind of mind-blowing. Wow, I've been doing this for a month already. That's crazy. But yeah, tune in next week. My name has been Wannabe Reviewer. And with that being said, I will catch you guys next time.
Twist the moist with blustering. Take it up, step aside, see the world effects as effects. Take a bow to the moon. Brainwave made with cycle, gotta hike and collect, select. Show me your best, like crystals, blisters. It's all over now. Cycle cane, you're sucking not anymore. Candy cane, cocaine, cold and free. Gotta hike it, Mr. Twist the moist with blustering. Stick it up, step aside, see the world effects as effects. Take a bow to the moon. To the nest is the west, honest. They once had a dream. Bells of society in the shells of the unity. Cornet and spin it, the sound flows. Balls to the home, drive by the power of dreams. That power is yet unknown. Morning rays, hairs make queens. Get on the way to the nest is the west, honest. They once had a dream. Bells of society in the shells of the unity. Cornet and spin it, the sound flows. Balls to the home, drive by the power of dreams. That power is yet unknown. Crystal blisters, it's all over now. Psycho cane, you're fucking nine, you're more candy cane. Cocaine, cold and green, gotta hide it. Mr. Twist the Morris with blustering. Stick it up, take it up, step aside, see the world effects of the best. Take it out of the moon. Morning rays, hairs make queens. Get on the way to the nest is the west, honest. They once had a dream about the society, the shells of the unity. Cornet and spin it, the sound flows. Balls to the home, dragged by the power of dreams. That power is yet unknown. Morning rays, hairs make queens. Get on the way to the nest is the west, honest. They once had a dream about the society, the shells of the unity. Cornet and spin it, the sound flows. Balls to the home, dragged by the power of dreams. That power is yet unknown. That power is yet unknown. Brainwave made with cycle, gotta hike, collect, select. Show me your best at crystal blisters. It's all over now. Psycho cane, you're sucking not anymore. Candy canes.